Hello and welcome. My name's Tina, and about a year and a half ago our family bought 140 acres off the grid in Australia. We call it Chimney Creek Farm. If you've been following us along on our journey, you'll know that we've had a lot of trouble with our shower and toilet tents getting blown away in the storms. This is what our shower looked like after the last storm. And so now we're on a mission to build something that won't be knocked over in a storm. We borrowed a trailer from our mate Daryl so that we could go and pick up some building materials. But before we do that, we brought a normal size fridge for our shed, which is pretty exciting for us. Having a full-size fridge in our shed means that we won't need to have an esky anymore. We were losing a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables because we weren't able to keep it cool enough in the esky. So I'm pretty excited that we've got this fridge now. It's going to make our lives so much easier. So to get the building materials that we needed for our outhouse, we had to take the 4-hour round trip to Armidale to pick up what we needed. Armidale's got some beautiful old buildings, and I used to live there for a few years when I was going to university, so it was a bit of a trip down memory lane for me. But the old university is really run down now compared to when I was going there. We went through Glen Innes. Glen Innes has a proud Celtic history, and we've been to quite a few festivals and markets here, and we really love Glen Innes. It's got some beautiful old buildings as well. And the trip between Glen Innes and Tenterfield has got some beautiful scenery. And we passed through Tenterfield, which is the closest town to our off-grid property. Such a beautiful little town. And as we get closer to home, we have to be more careful on the roads because there's always animals about, and there's lots of causeways and floodways. The property that joins onto our property is a sheep farming property. They also have cattle, and wild dogs or dingoes are considered vermin and treated as pests in this area, so you can see them hanging out from this tree. And it's a bit of a ghastly sight, but there are many reasons why this is done. Now back on Chimney Creek Farm, we're ready to unpack all the materials that we got and start building. So we got 24 bags of cement, and then we got some posts and some bearers. We also have some steps on top there too. And a lovely lady actually donated a lot of bolts to us as well. So day one, we're digging holes for the stirrups and the posts with the handheld auger. The ground here is so hard and it's very difficult to get these holes dug. Eli's just watering some of the plants that we planted down near the creek while the guys are using the machine to dig the holes. Because the ground is so hard here, the auger keeps getting caught and it sort of has a bit of a kickback to the person that's using it, which is a bit of a worry. Having this auger though has made our lives so much easier. It's so much better than using a shovel. So an auger is essentially a drill, and they come in many shapes and sizes, and there's lots of ways to use them. For health reasons alone, augers are a worthwhile investment because when you're not shoveling, when you're not needing to shovel, then you're not placing as much stress on your hands or your arms or your back. So they started having to use the star picket to hammer into the ground down below to try to loosen up some of the soil so the auger could actually turn. Small augers are a great tool for planting trees and things as well. And even though the work here was really hard because of the ground being so hard, having the auger actually saved us quite a lot of time in digging the holes. We have to put an auger on our list of things to buy because this one was just a loan from a friend. When working outdoors in the Australian sunshine and climate, it's important to be sun smart. Don't dress like Nathaniel here. It's getting late in the afternoon and the guys are starting to feel it. Are you still having fun, guys? At least in the late afternoon they can work in the shade here. This is a particularly stubborn hole. It's a very long day of digging. So after the first day of digging, I think they had completed about 7 of the holes out of the 12 that we needed to do. So a few more holes to dig tomorrow. And as the sunset goes down, it's time for some much needed rest. And in the evening, I have a glass of wine as I make the dinner. I like to use the barbecue outside to make dinner, and as you can see, the wind is blowing hard and there's a storm coming. It's the wet season here in this area at the moment, but unfortunately we haven't had the rains we were expecting, so our creek is totally dried up and the grass is really dry as well. Luckily we had our big tank that we installed. We do have a video on bringing that into the property. It's a 23,000 rainwater tank and it's full to the brim, but we're hoping that it's going to overflow into our little tank, so we're looking forward to a little bit more rain. And the average temperatures here are ranging between 11 degrees overnight to about 29 degrees during the day. So day 2 of the construction is basically trying to complete all the holes so that we can fill them up with cement and then put the stirrups for the posts into it to set. Some female magpies and their babies have come to steal our puppies' food, so that's a bit cheeky. And magpies are actually considered quite intelligent creatures. They are one of the few non-mammal species able to recognise themselves in a mirror. They have a beautiful song, and these ones don't seem to be aggressive at all, which is good. Our 6-month-old rescue puppy Truffles has come to inspect the work. So they've got all the holes dug now and they've put up the string line for where the stirrups need to go in to hold the posts up. And now the cement has been poured and the stirrups are in and setting. Paul attempts to put one of the posts in, but the cement is still a little bit too wet or hasn't set properly yet, so we need to take a break for a while. And just for while we're waiting for the cement to dry out, the rains came. And it was so beautiful and very much needed, but it just put a bit of a halt to the work that we were doing on building the outhouse. Sometimes nature tells you to take a rest. So day 4 of the construction, the posts get put up. The cement had finally set up after a couple of days of rain, And using the string line as a guide, the stirrups were set in the correct positions. Putting our posts up just helps with preventing any rot of the wood. And unfortunately, on our way to the hardware store, we lost the tailgate for our mate's trailer, which was a bit unfortunate. We tried to find it, but we couldn't. So they're holding the post in the correct position by just bracing it with some pickets while they're checking that it's level from all sides. Then when it's level, then they're drilling some holes for the bolts and then putting the bolts through the holes through the stirrups and then tightening them up with the nuts. So we're expecting family from Melbourne to come up and visit us in about a week. Do you think we'll get this outhouse done in time? Eli's putting the post in the stirrup. And Nathaniel's clamping the pickets to the post to keep them in place. And now they're clamping the post to the stirrups in the right position. And by the end of day 4, all the posts are up. Time to chill and watch the sun go down. Today has been a very constructive day. Sometimes I forget that there are people out there that give very little thought to being green and living sustainably. I've been listening to Diane and Robin, who do a podcast called Earthly Roots, and I think some of the topics that they're explaining or talking about is really important to us. I encourage you to go check them out.
Oh, there. How you going? It's a beautiful evening to have a shower.
Day 5 of construction, we get the bearers up. We didn't have enough money to get our joists at the same time as when we bought the bearers, so we'll have to go back to the hardware store and get them soon. The bearers are the skeleton of the structure and they hold everything together. They're what the joists sit on. Paul and Nathaniel are making sure the bearers are all level. Once the bearers are level, then they're clamped into place, and Nathaniel makes markings in the post where they're going to cut into so the bearer can fit into the post.
You only need one mark. Don't lean on it. Don't go down. If you go down too much, it's not going to cut it. When you make the cut, yeah. Next. Yeah. Wait, hold up, wait.
Watch out, Truffles.
No. Just straighten the wood up.
The bearers carry the burden of the whole structure, so they need to be very strong. Nathaniel uses the circular saw to cut into the post, and basically you do several closely spaced cuts between the two markings of where the bearers need to be set into the post. Then once the slits are cut, then Paul uses the chisel and the mallet or a hammer to basically remove all the excess wood in between the two markings so the bearer can be set into the posts. Paul then uses a sabre saw or a reciprocating saw to just tidy up that recess. So the guys are grabbing some old chipboards that we've had lying around the place to use as the floorboards for the outhouse. And they're just cleaning all the dirt and stuff off it. So Paul's just making some measurements and some markings of where the posts will need to go, so they'll have to cut into the chipboard, into the shape of the posts to make sure the flooring will fit properly. So this outhouse is going to be just temporary until we can afford to build our own house. So Paul's cutting the holes for the posts now, using the sabre saw or the reciprocating saw. And the joists will sit on top of the bearers in the opposite direction, but we haven't got them yet. We'll need to go back to the hardware store. And the flooring will sit on top of the joists.
Look.
Hold on, termite.
Oh, did you see it? It's been in behind the bottle. Don't pull it in.
So we've discovered some rats are living in our shed under these chipboards.
Oh, another one. Yeah, I thought there was 2 rats.
There's 3 of them.
There, go.
The back.
Oh, there's one.
Bro, moving! Oh, I'm sweet.
We'll just leave one in here to be the floor of the shed. So this was basically the first week of our Christmas holidays. Spent building our outhouse. A pretty crappy holiday. Houston, we have a problem. These chipboards are full of termites. Termites aren't actually ants as I thought, but they're actually more closely related to cockroaches, but they'll basically eat all this wood to bits, and they could also spread it to the rest of the wood structure as well. So what do you think we should do? Keep building with this chipboard or buy some other product to replace it instead, just to make sure that the termites don't get to the whole structure? Let us know your comments in below, and thank you very much for joining us and sharing our journey. We do really appreciate you being here with us, and it does help our channel if you give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Chat to you next time.